Enter the lair of the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. This wasn't a coincidence whatsoever. To become a champion like the Chiefs, you must make it count in the war room. Months of scouting and assessing have led to this moment. The NFL Draft. The dreams of many men will be fulfilled with a simple announcement. Some will thrive, some will flop, but this cannot be taken away from them. Why not go over those that will forever be called first-round picks?
With the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama.
It had been mocked for weeks. It was all but confirmed, and now it's official. The Carolina Panthers have their hopeful future of the franchise. Bryce Young is the new age model of NFL quarterback. A guy who would have been scoffed at a decade ago for being undersized, but oozes upside at this level. Carolina didn't trade everything but the kitchen sink just to watch this guy fly. Bryce will get every chance to prove his talent to the league. He's dealt with immense pressure at Alabama, but will his size allow him to hold up at the next level? I'm gonna say yes, but this is the NFL.
The Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State.
The question on everyone's mind. Do the Texans pick a QB at number 2? Do they go for Will Anderson and cause endless chaos? Or do they do something off the wall? That last statement may be true, but not for the predictable QB choice. It was a 2-horse race between Young and Stroud for most of the year. Young was already picked, so the dynamic Stroud is selected. Houston has been looking for their next savior since Deshaun Watson left for the Fool's Gold of Cleveland. Stroud has a good shot of being their next guy. Welcome to the new age of Texans football. Hopefully it isn't a cock tease like the last one.
The Houston Texans select Will Anderson Jr., linebacker, Alabama.
Holy shit. The Houston Texans are getting ultra aggressive and I kinda like it. Trading a massive haul to the Cardinals, including next year's first rounder to pick up a potentially generational edge rusher. Nick Caserio's doing everything he can to save his job. If Anderson pans out like we all suspect, the AFC South is going to be in hell. The ultimate risk for ultimate rewards. Go get him, Nick. You don't have Jack Easterby preaching the Book of Revelations to you anymore. Break yourself free of his chains.
The Indianapolis Colts select Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida.
Say hello to the highly projectable, toolsy quarterback who didn't do shit in college but jumps up draft boards because of what people think he could be. I don't understand modern NFL logic. Allen and Mahomes are 1 in a million success stories, yet every team sees a guy like this and says, I can fix him! For fuck's sake, even Gators fans are shitting bricks that he went this high, he was that inconsistent. I figured they'd go for Will Levis since he got the Peyton Manning seal of approval, but AR-15 is a cult for one reason. Shane Steichen. He helped to develop Jalen Hurts into a superstar and they're gunning for the same thing here. I'm just warning you now. He needs time to cook. If you expect this guy to be good on day one, you're gonna be in for pain. Although the Colts are pretty good at giving their fans that.
The Seattle Seahawks select Devin Witherspoon, cornerback, Illinois.
Ooh, fascinating. Jalen Carter seemed like the perfect fit, but Seattle must have gotten scared off from his character and conditioning issues. They only have the recent memory of Malik McDowell scarring them from it. With Witherspoon, some say he wasn't the number 1 corner in the draft, but he's much better in zone coverage, which the Seahawks run a ton of. Imagine him, Tariq Woolen, and Kobe Bryant patrolling the skies of the Pacific Northwest for years. The second coming of the Legion of Boom? Seattle can. And that's why they picked him.
The Arizona Cardinals select Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State.
You mean to tell me that the Cardinals are actually listening to their franchise QB? Kyler Murray had been begging them to pick a lead offensive lineman in the draft for years. But Steve Keim decided it'd be a better idea to Thanos snap his ACL in half. With people in charge who hopefully aren't fucking idiots, Kyler lobbied hard for Paris Johnson. It took another trade up to do, but they had a successful first round. They not only got arguably the best O-lineman in the draft, they got an extra first-round pick from the Texans to play with next season. Yet they somehow lose by being forced to give up a third-round pick for tampering with Jonathan Gannon. Philly fans cheered when he left the team, and now they get another reason to celebrate. Jesus.
The Las Vegas Raiders select Tyree Wilson, defensive end, Texas Tech.
This pick goes to show you how utterly terrible Chandler Jones was last season. His only highlight was Jacoby Myers throwing him a pass and force-pushing the soul out of Mac Jones's body. Otherwise, you'd have a better chance of finding Waldo on the football field. Tyree Wilson is the hopeful fix to this calamity. If he pans out, Him and Max Crosby? In that division? Oh baby, that'll be a deadly mix. Until their endless churn at linebacker in the secondary leads them to perpetual 7-win seasons.
The Atlanta Falcons select Bijan Robinson, running back, Texans.
Really, Atlanta? A fucking running back? Did you not see Tyler Algier emerge as a 1,000-yard rusher last year? I know Bijan is a shitload of talent, but you had Christian Gonzalez right there! He could have been a shutdown tandem with AJ Terrell for a decade! Yes, the Falcons need a pass-catching running back, but you can get that shit in round 3! Dude, I'm not even a Falcons fan and I'm pissed at them. You better hope that Bijan is just as much the elite bell cow as people say he is. And it has to be out the gates. Drafting a runner this high nowadays isn't the hip, trendy thing to do.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, Georgia.
This is a day of celebration for Philly. As expected, Jalen Hurts got his first big boy contract. And the Eagles are definitely bleeding government green in honor of the baggy secure. Speaking of Jalen's, meet the classic red flag draft pick. Blessed with incredible talent except in between the eyes. Carter was supposed to be a top 4 selection, but then it came out he has an affinity for street racing. It got a teammate of his tragically killed. After that, he seemingly stopped giving a shit about football and had a disastrous showing at his pro day. Which is why the Eagles snagged him up in a perfect fit. In theory. If they give him the come-to-Jesus talk and Jalen gets his shit together, he and Jordan Davis destroy interior lines for a decade. The downside? Well, let me introduce you to a man named Lawrence Phillips.
The Chicago Bears select Darnell Wright, offensive tackle, Tennessee.
The Bears need linemen. Protecting Justin Fields in the pocket is paramount. And Darnell Wright immediately fills a need at either side of the line. Depends where they feel Tevin Jenkins fits better. It's another pick in a lineup trying to overhaul a stagnant franchise. And it seems to be working, at least on paper. I will never complain about trying to build from the trenches. Protect the stars as best you can. It's not a sexy pick, but it's necessary.
The Tennessee Titans select Peter Skoronski, offensive tackle, Northwestern.
Oh, god damn it. I was hoping to laugh at the Titans for drafting Will Levis in the first round. To be fair, they did cut Taylor Lewan and Andre Dillard's going to be injured by week 4. Skoronski is either going to be a quality tackle for years or an all-pro guard. Just as long as every scout that snickers about his so-called alligator arm stays quiet, he should be alright. The Titans themselves? They were trying to trade up to number 3 and get Nuke Hopkins, but it fell through. Their new stadium proposal, however, didn't. And they will look forward to a few Super Bowls on the city's dime in the future. Probably not involving them. Speaking of Will Levis, he got picked by the Titans in the 2nd round. Because why settle for just one extremely raw project QB when you can have 2 of them?
The Detroit Lions select Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, Alabama.
Detroit, are you okay? A running back at 12? And one that wasn't projected to go anywhere near this position? You could have had Gibbs at 18. You just signed David Montgomery to be your feature back. You had a DeAndre Swift you barely used when he was somehow healthy before you traded him to Philly. Lions, you better know what the hell you're doing, because the optics here look kinda shitty. Also, if you wanted to go with a runner, then why the hell did you trade down? Why not pick Bijan if this was the path you wanted to go? The only way to justify this pick is if Jahmyr becomes a stud before his first snap.
The Green Bay Packers select Lucas Van Ness, defensive end, Iowa.
Never change, Green Bay. Dire needs at wide receiver for roughly the 5th year in a row, yet you go for an edge rusher and a draft chock full of good ones for a few years down the road. Rashawn Gary's contract will be an issue and Preston Smith is aging, yes, but shit like this is why Wisconsin is frustrated to all hell with this regime. Ignoring the team's obvious issues for the sake of supposed long-term planning and endless trading down in the 2nd round. And worse, picking a player who's dating the sister of Cole Kmet. If Aaron Rodgers were still a Packer, he'd be ripping people's heads off in the war room. Thank God they finally got that trade done so we don't have to hear about it anymore.
The Pittsburgh Steelers select Broderick Jones, offensive tackle, Georgia.
Thank fucking God I don't have to witness Dan Moore be absolutely overmatched at blindside for the 3rd year in a row. The Steelers knew it as well. You invested heavily in your skill players. Now invest in your line and make it one of the best in football again. It didn't cost much to move up a few positions, and it allowed them to draft an absolute fucking mower. Pure chiseled stone that can set the position for a decade if he succeeds. Love the pick. And don't worry, Yinzers, Joey Porter Jr. fell to number 32. The bloodlines remain strong. Pittsburgh has so many family connections on the team, they're almost incestuous.
The New York Jets! Jets! Select Will McDonald, linebacker, Iowa State. Let's go! Yeah!
A hidden cost of the Aaron Rodgers trade. Swapping first-rounders with Green Bay cost them a chance at drafting a needed offensive tackle in Broderick Jones. It was a month in the making, but Rodgers now gets a different shade of green like the guy he replaced in Green Bay. To aid him, select another edge rusher in this class in Will McDonald that is needed to keep up with the Joneses of the division. If it weren't for the fact that the Patriots robbed you of your true need, may a song fill your hearts with joy as compensation. Will McDonald is a Jet. Jets, Jets.
The Washington Commanders select Emmanuel Forbes, defensive back, Mississippi State.
It's a fair pick. Washington had a dire need at corner, and Forbes is a scheme fit even if it is a slight reach. The only downside is in his weight. Most NFL players could probably chuck this man like a javelin, weighing in at 166 pounds. In the old days, this would have been a demerit, but as long as he can cover like a blanket on a toddler, it shouldn't matter much. Let us hope he stays healthy and prospers. Unlike Chase Young. Can we sacrifice our limbs to make sure he can stay on the field?
The New England Patriots select Christian Gonzalez, defensive back, Oregon.
He wasn't projected to go super high, but it felt like this slide continued on for ages. Of course, he goes to New England, where Bill Belichick will somehow mold him into an elite corner like his team has for nearly every player they've had at that position. I'd say it was a good draft for them. You get a great player at a position of dire need, and you deny the Jets of a severe need at offensive line. The Patriots have now beaten that team 3 times this year.
The Detroit Lions select Jack Campbell, linebacker, Iowa.
This pick makes a little more sense for Detroit. Best middle linebacker available in a weak draft for them. Detroit hasn't had a really good one as a field general for a while, and it's not for lack of trying. Campbell's a slight reach, but in terms of a traditional linebacker, there isn't much to nitpick. It eases the sting of whatever the fuck their pick at 12 was. Although if you swap him and the Brian Branch pick, it seems okay. Plus, you got Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round that works as a backup-ish. Now, as I say this, they'll probably have the best draft of anyone because this is how this works.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Kalijah Kancey, defensive end, Pittsburgh.
Hail to Pitt. After shedding Donovan Smith, I figured they'd go tackle to replace him, but Cancey fills a critical role as well. Him and Vita Vea on the defensive interior. Better bulk up in your offensive lines if you're in the NFC South. It's not what it was in the Super Bowl year, but that defense can still destroy hopes and dreams. As long as you manage to keep Devin White. And he plays up to potential, of course.
The Seattle Seahawks select Jackson-Njigba, wide receiver, Ohio State.
What you're now hearing is all of Wisconsin getting triggered over these boys taking the guy they were all begging their team to take. Weapons for Geno Smith. A priority for Seattle. Pairing Smith-Njigba with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for a few seasons, and drafting another running back in the first 2 rounds. Somewhere Pete Carroll is salivating so much it's turning into a solid object he will use as chewing gum. JSN immediately slots in as a day 1 impact player, and if he succeeds, it'll be yet another victory against the Packers over the past decade. The best kind of wins are the long-range ones.
The Los Angeles Chargers select Quentin Johnston, wide receiver, TCU.
Johnston may feel like excess goods, but past the surface it makes a lot of sense. Keenan Allen's getting long in the tooth. Mike Williams can't do it alone. Justin Herbert needs receivers that can keep up with this rocket arm. This is where Quentin Johnston fits in. A big-time wideout with the upside of one at the next level. Only if he could do something about some of the glaring holes throughout the roster, but the Chargers do love them some sexy picks. Don't say they don't try to impress.
The Baltimore Ravens select Zay Flowers, wide receiver, Boston College.
Baltimore and wide receiver is about as critical a need as a man in water after 3 days in the desert. Zay Flowers is the perfect fit for what Baltimore runs. And hopefully he'll fulfill his potential, unlike the last few firsts they've invested in the position. It's good that we're focusing on this problem instead of others. Big news occurred just before the draft. The great Lamar debate has finally been settled. They both stopped their brief separation and renewed their vows. Lamar stepped off the ledge of his exorbitant demands, but he got paid, becoming the highest paid QB in yearly value with $185 million guaranteed. It's fair value for what Lamar brings to the table. As much as I would have loved to see Lamar in a different division, it would have been weird without him as a Raven. Saved at the 11th hour.
The Minnesota Vikings select Jordan Addison, wide receiver, USC.
Run on wide receivers continues with Minnesota's answer to Adam Thielen. Addison fills a lot of the requirements that Thielen had as a Viking for many years. Slightly undersized, cerebral, good route running, and reliable hands. He made magic happen at Pitt and USC. And if he utilizes those talents as a Viking, he'll make a great 1-2 punch with Justin Jefferson for a while. Now the question becomes who's going to throw to them after this season. But that's for another time.
The New York Giants select Deonte Banks, defensive back, Maryland.
There were no more wide receivers worth a first rounder available after all of them were just snagged. So why not go for need and the best fit available for your scheme? Corner was a big hole to fill for the G-Men. And Deonte Banks is pretty good for what New York runs. It's all but foolproof. Defense is what has helped guide New York back to relevance. Filling it with more talent definitely doesn't hurt. If Banks is good, it will help in this endeavor.
The Buffalo Bills select Dalton Kincaid, tight end, Utah.
Buffalo didn't need much, but they did need an alternative to Dawson Knox in the passing game. More weapons for Josh Allen couldn't hurt. Plus, Kincaid is one of the best available at tight end. Just imagine the upside of Kincaid terrorizing defenses for a very, very long time. Look no further than Travis Kelce. Do you know how often he's destroyed the hopes and dreams of Buffalonians? If Kincaid can come even close to that impact, it'll be a success.
The Dallas Cowboys select Mazi Smith, defensive tackle, Michigan.
Dallas didn't make a flashy pick. This is kind of surprising. Mazi Smith makes a ton of sense as it fills a dire need on the roster. Interior D-line is lacking for the Cowboys. And Mazi was the best available at the time. Nothing wrong with drafting another running back to replace Zeke, but you can get that later. Get what you need to get and go from there. Simple as that.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Anton Harrison, tackle, Oklahoma.
Jacksonville's replacement for Jawan Taylor on the O-line. Harrison can play it, so welcome to the resurgent Duval. Your job will be protecting the Golden Goose in Trevor Lawrence. Think you can handle it? If not, there are plenty of other candidates for the job. Maybe some of the lottery tickets they had in the later rounds. Best of luck, Anton.
The Cincinnati Bengals select Miles Murphy, defensive end, Clemson.
This reeked of a Michael Mayer selection, but since he could use a counterpiece to Trey Hendrickson on the edge, especially in the unforgiving AFC North, having a guy like this in your arsenal is paramount. Miles should have day one impact, barring catastrophic injury. And every piece counts in the quest to finally lift Lombardi for the first time. You'll do anything to get it. The upside is there, but can he be consistent enough to realize it?
The New Orleans Saints select Brian Bresee, defensive tackle, Clemson.
New Orleans shed a ton on the defensive line this offseason. Onyemata, Tuttle, and Davenport in particular, so it was critical that they refill it with cost-control talent. Bresee is the best available D-lineman in this spot. Congratulations, you've earned a trip down to the Bayou. With their brand new Derek Carr, will it be enough to finally allow the Saints to reach the peaks that they once experienced? That's to be determined, but the selections they made won't hurt in their quest. It is a really weak NFC South this year, just saying.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Nolan Smith, linebacker, Georgia.
Nothing like the prototypical Eagles pick. Blazing speed, lightning agility, and weighs 240 pounds soaking wet. Goes to show you how much the league has changed in a decade. Nolan Smith is a new breed of edge rusher. And Philly's apparently taking the midnight train down to Georgia. The Eagles are assembling the front seven of the Bulldogs' natty team. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and Nakobe Dean. They even got Keely Ringo in the 4th round. Watch them somehow end up with Trayvon Walker and Devontae Wyatt after all is done.
With the 31st pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Felix Anudike-Uzomah, defensive end, Kansas State.
We interrupt this rambling for yet another victory lap of the Super Bowl champs. Chiefs meet your replacement for the disappointing Frank Clark. And at a much cheaper cap hit as well. To defend your title, it's simply plug and play with the next man up. That's what FAU is going to be at Kansas City from this point forward. Nothing else to say about the first round of the draft. It was so prolonged that they showed Will Levis in the green room about 500 times that night. Besides him, an exciting time for us all. And the only thing you can do is speculate until the games are played. Debate and grade all you want, but it's going to be a bit before you can assess these picks properly. It's how it's always been and always will be.
The Atlanta Falcons select DeMarco Hellams.
No.
Defensive back, Alabama. 28-3, good one. We've heard that before.
I'm assuming that came from the New England section down in the orchestra pit.